Welcome to the DM Elite podcast. On today's episode, we have got Don Cowie. Don is an ex-professional football player and now first-team coach at Ross County. Don has, through his career, has been at Ross County, Inverness, Cali, Watford, Cardiff, Wigan, Hearts, and then back to Ross County again before he took his coaching role on. He also played 10 times for Scotland, and through his career, I think has been especially from when I played with my model professional. In today's podcast, I really want to chat personally about how he's gone from playing, I guess, lower leagues in Scotland to the biggest league of all, the English Premiership, playing internationally. And one thing that I sort of remember from my career with Don, he was a great role model. I think he was a step ahead of everyone else, not only at the club, but everyone else at that level. Now looking back, which I didn't always realise at the time, but now, you get old and you realise, and looking back now, you can appreciate, sort of from where Don was coming from. So, Don, thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you doing?
Great, thanks for that lovely intro.
No, it's true though. I said, I've not we just spent last maybe 20 minutes talking there, and I've not really spoke to Don since I stopped playing him, or maybe he left the area, which was what, 2008, 2009.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, I'm still a bit of start with the chipper, so I might get the game, but I still remember my stuff. So at the time, to put it in the context, I played with Don. He was, from me being a sort of, youth team player through to a first team player. When I first joined the first team, Don was just made captain, I think. But he'd been a couple of years in the first team, and, he was always a player that, likes of Don, John Rankin, Sean Higgins, all the sort of younger players looked up to. And, even at that time, you could see players like him and John Rankin were a bit ahead of everyone else at the club. I think, looking back now and knowing how I think I struggled with football, is I thought I'd sort of not made it as such, made it like in a bad way, but I thought I'd done enough when I'd reached the first team, because and you'll know what I mean here, Don, but all you ever do is play for your local team, and you did that and I did that, but you went to a whole different stratosphere. And I think the difference in mentality was that I think a lot of the boys at my age group, not only my age group, but a lot of boys that you've probably seen come and go as well, thought being at that level was enough. And I'm sure you've seen it yourself, Don. You've seen a lot of good technical players over the years, but that only gets you so far, I think. And don't get me wrong, I think not only probably the best professional player, but probably the best technical player you played with. Not for and I think people, and you've probably known this from over the years, people don't always, I think football players appreciate a player like you more. First touch, passing, you're not always a player that's got to go past 2 or 3 players and put in the top corner, as I'm sure you admit every week. But it's consistency, and I think over the years you've always done the right things. And I think what I wanted to get first from the chat is to sort of maybe understand and realise, am I right in saying that back then you sort of knew what you were doing, or were you just being professional because you maybe seen David Beckham's of this world, staying after training, living the right life? Or were you consciously thinking to yourself, right, I need to do the right things here for the next 2 or 3 years? It might not be good at the time now, but if I don't go out weekends and I don't drink and I train hard and I stay for longer and I recover quicker than all the other boys, I'm going to get ahead of the other boys. Was that a conscious decision, or was it like something you were just doing to do your own best, sort of thing?
I think it was a bit of both. I think it was a mindset that I got into, in terms of I wanted to maximise my opportunity as being a footballer. I didn't want to have any excuse. I wanted to know that I'd given it 100%, and that basically I dedicated my life to it, because it's what I'd always wanted to do. I think all my school teachers, throughout the years would have backed that up. It was just all about playing football. I still did my schoolwork, tried to do it, but in the back of my mind, it was all about being a footballer. Then it becomes, timing, luck, making the most opportunities. When I was leaving school, the opportunity was to be full-time at Ross County. It was a new setup that they had created, so that's when I say sometimes it comes down to luck. So I was given that opportunity, which maybe people 5-10 years before me in the Highland area, they didn't have that opportunity. You know, I've got 3 older brothers who probably would have been offered the same chance had they been my age, but they weren't. So then you make the most of that. And then it's about progressing. It's about growing as a person, both mentally and physically. And then, like you say, you start to think you want to get ahead of everyone else. You know, so that's why, you know, I wanted to be the best I could be every day in training. Whether it was a passing drill, possession drill, I wanted to be on, you know, 100%, make sure I was clean, doing it right, because I wanted to come a Saturday when the manager picked the team, he could say, right, I rely on that player. I'm going to play him. I didn't want him to have an excuse to say, no, you're not playing because you've not been training properly. So that I thought that would take care of itself. And then off the pitch, you start to think, well, I'm not going to go down the route of alcohol and going out every weekend, because if I play my game on the Saturday, recover properly on the Sunday, when I come in on the Monday, I'm going to be ahead of everyone else who's maybe overindulged over the weekend and decided to go down a different pathway. And then gradually you start to rise and get ahead of these sort of players, because you said there I was, you know, technically sound, which I was, but like you say, I wasn't a gifted player that was, you know, going to go past 2 or 3 players and put it in the top corner. It just wasn't in my nature. So for me to stand out, I had to do the simple things well. So that
I think as well. I think you probably, maybe from the outside, I don't know what the sort of what it's been like for yourself over the years, the feedback and with social media and whatnot. But I don't ever think you may be given the credit maybe outside the football world externally, maybe how good you actually were. Because I know, you know, every football player you speak to played with, you know, always even top notch, you know. And I think maybe people know the game, know that you were gifted, and I think you could only ever be gifted like that through not only hard work. You had that natural ability, but it was just a different sort of natural ability, and it's probably, if anything, probably a rarer natural ability to just have to do the simple things well. And I think that's what you did really well.
No, yeah, I think, you know, you're right. I was one of those that I wanted to know when the ball was coming to me. I wanted to know where it was going. So maybe that's where you see it, is that gifted side. You know, I like to. Maybe I felt it was simple and effective, but
yeah,
you know, with yourself playing with me, you've seen it a different way. But that was the way I was, and you know, I knew I was a team player. That's what I was, because there was other players that, like we've said, could maybe go past 2 or 3 players and score a goal, but I wanted to be the person who maintained the ball, kept possession, you know, did good bits here and there, whether it was score a goal, you know, sporadically, but at the same time I knew that I was given 100% and I was working to my maximum, you know, every training session and every game that I was playing in.
And you think, when you look back at how many, you know, not from the age you're like maybe 17, 18, first breaking at the team, through to, like, you know, for the time you went to England, if you think you're saying that maybe, you know, that decision a Saturday night, you know, 90% of the boys are going out, had a good win, you know, they're out Saturday, and probably at that time out all day Sunday and Sunday night as well. But you know, if you think how much, you know, you gain from that, you know, subconsciously, that compounding sort of like almost recovery, all those Mondays that you probably gained a lot on people when you maybe weren't being like very like competitive on it individually at the time, but looking back now, it's probably served really well. And I think it's a good lesson for a lot of players now. You know, it's something I do regret, you know, and it's something I can only see now through having a business which is competitive. You know, you can't have your own business and have staff without being competitive to an extent, and I think that comes from football. But I think the problem with me with football is that, like I said, I think it happens to a lot of boys, they enjoy being football players more than they enjoy playing football. And it gets, and you dream up this dream of like playing football, you see the bright lights, you see the Premier League, but you underestimate how much it actually takes, and it takes, you know, it takes so much more, I think, than a lot of people think. I mean, and when you do make it to that level, it's, you know, it takes a lot of work to get out that level, and, you know, because you didn't move to England to what, 25, 26?
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right what you're saying, but I think the major thing is, you know, I still enjoyed myself. I still had fun.
Yeah,
I would still go out now and again, but I think what's important is you find a balance. You know,
yeah,
I found a good balance. I was content. I was happy. I knew when not to overindulge, whether it's eating, you know, things like that. I knew I had not a strict regime, but I knew it within myself mentally, right, that's enough. You've had, you know, whether it's one bar of chocolate, and I know it might sound funny, but one bar, right, okay, I've had it. I don't need to have 2 and 3 a Saturday night, right? I can have my bag of crisps because I've worked so hard, you know, on the Saturday in the game. That's the time to maybe treat yourself so that, you know, there is a good balance to find. And I think that's what I had, and I managed to maintain that, you know, throughout my career.
I think you're the good, that what's probably the rarest thing was self-awareness at the time, I think, because I think a lot of, especially the time I was there, it was a lot of sort of like peer. It was a lot of banter, and you sort of like, especially when you're an Amboy, and you probably were victim of it as well. You kind of just go with the flow and just do what everyone else does, and to have I think to have the self-awareness to like take a step back and think, you know, I can't do this. You know, I've maybe seen boys that have, you know, have made the wrong decisions, and I think to recognise that at 21, 22 and give yourself the best chance over that next 3 years, it's really that 8 years between 21 and, you know, 24 probably make you or break you as a player, you know. And I think, well, those are the times I probably knew and saw the sort of dedication you put in, which obviously has paid off. Did you have aspirations? I'm assuming you had aspirations to go to England once you started playing regular, and especially moved to Cali. But did you ever think you'd play Premier League, or did you achieve more than you ever thought you would?
Yeah, definitely. I don't, you know, I'm honest enough to say that I didn't think I would get to that level. You know, even when I was at Ross County, when I was 23, playing with yourself, you know, I probably could have taken the easy option and stayed at Ross County. It's all I knew. I'd been there since I was a little boy. I could have stayed in my comfort zone, like you said. I was captain at the time of my local team, and you know, people probably raised their eyebrows. How can he go to Cali? You know, the local neighbours, the rivalry. But I really didn't see it like that. I just seen it as a football decision. I just thought, what an opportunity for me going into the Premier League. You know, they were established in the Premier League at that stage for a few years, whereas Ross County hadn't got there. So it was an opportunity I had to take. I had to go there, and I took myself out of my comfort zone. And not only that, I went to Cali, and at the time, like I say, they were established. They must have had, I don't know, 7 or 8 midfielders who were probably ahead of me, you know, when I signed. They didn't exactly pull out all the stops to sign me. It was more they were giving me the opportunity, so I should be grateful. You know, my wage probably reflected that. It was more just, look, here's a wee opportunity for you, go and see what you can do. And I probably didn't even believe in myself the first few weeks when I was there, because like I say, there was a lot of midfielders, and you start thinking, this is going to be difficult. But just got my head down. You know, I made sure that I was as fit as I could be pre-season, and then you just gradually get more and more comfortable in the environment, and then, you know, got my opportunity, and then that was definitely the platform. At no stage was I thinking, you know, getting to England. It was only when, like you say, I got a season under my belt at Inverness, and it, you know, it went really well, and then you start to think, right, okay, I can take it, you know, one step further.
Aye, so it wasn't as if you went to Cali thinking, you were never thinking 2 steps ahead. It was just like,
No,
take each the sort of moves that comes. And so I remember that. I remember it did take a few months maybe to break into the team, did it? And then once you got on the team, it sort of snowballed from there.
What happened was the first. No, in fact, it was the second game of the season I played, and then third game played, scored, but then the manager got sacked. Charlie got sacked. You know, so then again you're thinking, you know, a new manager, back to square one. Craig Brewster came in, but I managed to, stay in the team when he became manager, and then, ended the season with, I think it was 9 league goals, and played, I don't know, maybe 34, 35 games of the league. So it was a good return, and that's when the belief really sort of started to progress.
Is that when you started thinking like a bit ahead then? Because what contract you signed? 2 or 3 years?
So I'd signed a 2-year deal, and then you've got a year left, and then all of a sudden Inverness start to realise that you've had a good season. Like I say, scoring 9 goals from midfield, it was a good return. They offered me a new contract. That was a stage when another thing that you talk about, this was the first time I had an agent after that first season, because I started to think, right, I probably need an agent. They were wanting me to stay, and my agent sort of gave me the advice to just hang fire, and that's what I did. And then I got to January, and then the interest started to drum up, because you're into your last 6 months. You're a free transfer in 6 months. You can speak to teams. You can sign a pre-contract.
So at that time, when did the interest sort of gather? Was it the start of that season you were picking bits up, or was it a bit later in the season?
Yeah, I started, like I say, on the back of that first season, you start to get, little whispers that there's teams showing an interest, nothing concrete, but, just that they're starting to watch you. So started the season, scored another few goals in that sort of first half of the season, and then it's getting closer to January, and I'd sort of told Cowie that I wasn't interested in signing a contract at that stage. I was, wanting to keep my options open, and then started to hear of 3 or 4 English teams that were starting to watch me and stuff. But at no stage was Watford mentioned. That wasn't one of the teams. And then it's probably middle to end of January, I got told that, they were, a lot of it was talk, but they were the ones that said, no, we want to sign him now. So, they got me to sign a pre-contract.
Was that Brendan Rodgers?
That was Brendan Rodgers, yeah.
Yeah. And how was that whole process? That I actually remember. I think I watched your debut in your house with Joe and Ganny when they lived there.
Right.
And I think they did, didn't they?
Aye, they did.
Yeah, aye. And I'm sure it was Chelsea you debuted against.
Chelsea. So I went down, and I went down the first week. I didn't get to the training ground. The snow was that bad in England that they just didn't know how to deal with it. So I went down, and I spent the first week in a hotel. I couldn't even get to the training ground, and then so the league game was cancelled. So the first game was Chelsea in the FA Cup at Vicarage Road.
And so how was that whole transition? Did it happen that fast that you didn't realise what was going on, or were you comprehending it at all? Or was it just a bit of a blur?
That was a bit of a blur. You're apprehensive. And going down to Watford, I'm a bit like you in terms of I love my football. I watch all my football, so I was aware of the English Championship. I'm aware of the group of players at Watford, and you're thinking, how do I break into this sort of team? You see the players at the time, Joby McAnuff, Tommy Smith, really established players at that level. So then you go down, and then your first game's against Chelsea, and you're looking across, and it's Ashley Cole, Lampard, Drogba, and Elka, and you're just like, wow.
It's just a different ballgame, eh?
Yeah, it's like I say, for someone who just loves football, it was just incredible.
Yeah, and did it take a while to transition, like to get out of that, or were you quite I assume like you spoke about your transition there from county to Cali, which you obviously could have gone like almost Division 2 to Premier League, but you chose Premier League out of the comfort zone, and then you've probably gone again an obvious career step, but it's probably you're sinking out your comfort zone that time. I'm sure you're probably well out of it. So how was that? Especially I suppose at that time you had a young family. Was that difficult, or was it just that exciting that you sort of just took it all in your stride? And was the transition? I'm assuming it was bigger, but the difference from going from county to Cali and all you knew to the Premier League, establish your Premier League. Did you have more belief going from Cali to Watford, or was it very similar?
No, like I had, I felt confident because I felt like I'd done really well in that 18 months at Cali, but it was a level of football that I didn't know. You watch it on TV, but you don't know it. But I do remember going down, and I think it was, you know, my first training session. And you know when you've trained well, and you know when you've not. And I felt my first training session, I trained really well. You know, I felt really content, and it gave me a lot of confidence. That first training session, it almost made me think I belong at this team. You know, I can play in this team. And that the Chelsea game, I didn't start it. I was sub. I came on, and then the following week was a league game, and I played that. We played Swansea. And Swansea were flying at the time at the top of the table. It was like when Jason Scotland and that were there, and we beat them at home 2-0. And we were near the bottom of the league at the time, and they were at the top. We won 2-0, and I played in it. I was involved in one of the goals, and again, that just gave me real belief. And then we went on a really good run. I think I scored 3 goals in my first 5 league games. Again, just gave me massive confidence that I belonged in that at that level. Not only that, I had a tremendous manager, you know, a real man manager who made me, you know, feel so confident. Not just me, just the whole players, you know, just little chats here and there. It just made you just grow, you know, just that self-confidence. It just made you feel when you were going out, you know, that you felt a really good player.
Was that his first job in management? Was he? Am I right in saying he was at was it Reading before, or was it maybe he had a stint somewhere and it didn't go so well and he went to Watford? Is that right?
No, that was his first job at Watford. He went to Reading afterwards.
Oh right, okay, then Swansea.
So we had done that well. So I went in the January. I think they were third bottom of the league, and we finished mid-table. Reading had not long been relegated, so they had the parachute payments. They were wealthy, whereas Watford were sort of going through that transition of the parachute payments had stopped. They're starting to change their sort of wage structure. So the player was maybe, you know, the finances weren't there. And he actually lived in Reading. So there was a big pool, and Reading came in and took Brendan at the end of that season.
So, So what made Brendan Rodgers so, like, cause I'm sure there's a lot of Celtic fans that listen to this and that. What made Brendan Rodgers so good? I've heard a lot about him. I've seen articles from like say Johnny Hayes speaking about him and, you know, how good he was, as you know, personally. But like, what made him stand out? Because even you look at him now, and like every job he sort of goes into it like with ease, and you just know everyone wants to play for him.
He just, like I say, just gives you that belief. His training was excellent. You know, it didn't matter if you were playing, if you were a sub, if you weren't even on the bench, if you were foreign, if you were British. He would always make time for everyone. Like I say, just little chats during training, take you to the side, have a wee word, you know, make you feel part of it, which, you know, I think is massive, you know, to make you feel part of the squad. Because at the end of the day, your squad could be best part of 25 players, but only 11 can start the game. And it's, how do you manage that? You know, how do you make everyone feel part of it? How do they buy into it? And that was something that I've taken away from him, just the way he went about it.
I think it's right. I think you're right enough in saying that, because I think, like, knowing from spending a lot of time, especially at Ross County on the bench, like, and maybe not having the same sort of maybe managers with the same personable skills, but you know, I think your most important players are the players that are on your bench, really, because the players that are playing look after themselves, don't they? Really.
Yeah, it's definitely, and not only that. When I signed, like I say, I didn't see myself as anyone in particular, but when I signed, you go down, and I'll never forget. He took me in his office and he put on his table this dossier, and it was, you know, this thick, and it was all about me. He knew everything about me, he knew everything about my family, he knew everything about my career. You know, just every little detail, which made me feel, it was like, wow, you know, I'd never came across anything like that before. Made you feel special, like they'd proper done their homework on you.
Which gives you belief in itself, I suppose.
It does.
And I suppose, like, I'm assuming, like, I don't know, but I think was it Chelsea before? So I know Mourinho was big at that at the time, wasn't he? So he's probably done a lot of homework like that, getting bits and pieces off him, isn't he?
Yeah, because he was in the youth setup there. You know, he had to retire early, so he was youth coach at Chelsea, you know, so he'd learnt a lot there.
And I guess it goes back to the point, like like you don't think you're maybe doing, like you maybe living a more maybe quieter life at Ross County and Cali, but it just goes to show like that sort of delaying gratification where, like, you know, always choosing the what appears the best thing at the time, or you know, if you just offset that to maybe a month, a year, 2 years down the line, like you might not, like looking back, I know you won't know this, but you might not have got that move had Watford done their homework and you're out in Baku every weekend.
No, you're right. Football's a small world. I know now, probably more so than ever, being a coach. You know, if you're interested in a player or the club is, or it's only a phone call or a message to someone that you might know or you've got a link with. Someone's always got an opinion of someone, whether it's their personality, so yeah, it's a small world. You know, people can find out anything about you. So yeah, it probably played a big part in me. You know, like you say, phone.
First impressions count.
Yeah.
First impressions count, and like I said, the day-to-day counts, like that. Like you've seen it, like you've been there yourself. Probably you lose that a wee bit, or your head goes a wee bit in training. Not always, obviously, but you create like football, like any other maybe industry. Like very early on, you create a reputation for yourself, and it's very difficult, I think, to ever lose that, no matter how hard you try. I think the better you do, and the better attitude, and the more you apply the things you can control, your work rate, your attitude, your application. When you meet people, and it's same, like being brutally honest myself. Like when you're hiring staff, it's probably very similar. You've got the world at your tools now, with social media, with networking. It's very easy to get touch base people, and if you're a football manager looking at a player, any potential players, football players listening to this, or if you're an employee within a business, like it's important that every single day, no matter if it's a Monday after you've been out the weekend, you turn up. Turning up 5 minutes early every single Monday makes a big difference than turning up 2 minutes past 9 every single Monday. Like those little things, I think, accumulate over time. And I think the way you treat one thing is how you treat everything. And I think if you start having more of those habits than you do the good habits, it'll impact. And no matter how hard you think you're disguising it. And I think that's very important. Whatever industry you're in, I'm sure you agree with that. It's probably the one of the things, again, like going back to the start, that you did very well, which like I said, looking back now I can see it, but at the time I couldn't see it. You're just thinking, oh, he's a bit busy, or you probably get called that a few times, but
you did. Bumblebee and all that.
Aye, it pays off. It pays off. Those boys didn't play in the Premier League, did they? So I guess going to the next one. So I guess we're at Watford just now. So you had your sort of 3 years at Watford.
2.5.
2.5. 2.5 years at Watford. Then you went to Cardiff, and I guess that what was that? How did that all go? And I guess that move coincided with like playing Premier League. So talk us through that whole transition.
Well, I actually thought I was going to Swansea because Brendan was the manager at Swansea, and again, my contract had come to an end at Watford. I decided I was leaving, like I touched on earlier. Financially, they'd sort of changed a wee bit. They'd sold Danny Graham that summer, who was our main striker, Will Buckley. So they were going through that transition. They'd offered me a new deal, but Swansea had shown interest to sign me because Brendan was the manager. And they got promoted. They won the playoffs to get to the Premier League. And what I was sort of told was, if they get promoted, they wanted to sign me. If they don't get promoted, they don't, because they were happy with the sort of squad they had, whereas they needed to beef up the squad if they got promoted. So I was away on holiday thinking, just waiting on the call from Swansea to get that confirmed, if it was going to happen or not. And in the meantime, Malky Mackay, who was my manager at Watford, he left Watford and he went to Cardiff. Now, he obviously knew I was leaving Watford because I'd rejected the new deal. So he got in contact with my agent and said, look, I want to take Don to Cardiff with me. And basically, he got in there first. I wasn't willing to wait. he made it pretty clear that he wanted to take me, and so that's how I got to Cardiff in the end. He was my manager at Watford. I enjoyed working under him for 2 years. Played basically every game. Enjoyed his training, his style. And Cardiff were a big team who were desperate to get into the Premier League. I think they'd been beating the playoffs 3 years in the trot. They had good squad. I think the year before I was there, they had taken Craig Bellamy and Aaron Ramsey on loan, and from players that I'd played against in that 2 seasons against them, they were a proper team. So I thought, this is a real step up for me. It's the same league, but it's a real step up in terms of what team I'm going to be playing for. They just new stadium as well. They'd opened that, so I thought it was a great opportunity for me, and it turned out to be, the right decision.
Do you ever wonder about if you didn't take it and you waited?
Not really. I would have the thought of playing with under Brendan again, and the way his Swansea team played was one that really excited me. But the fact that I knew I was going to such a big club in Cardiff and working under Malky, who I knew, I thought it was a great opportunity as well. So no, there was no regrets in that sense.
And so I think was the second season you got promoted? Yeah.
So the first season we got to the Carling Cup final against Liverpool. We got beaten that in penalties, and then we got to the playoffs. Got beat by West Ham, a very strong West Ham team at the time in the semi-final of the playoffs. So it was a great season. I think I played over 50 odd games in one season. I'd sort of got into the Scotland setup, got a few caps that year as well. So it was a great year for me that year. Just in terms of the output that I managed to get in terms of games, and to play in a national final at Wembley and get to the playoffs, etc. It was probably one of the highlights year-wise, footballing-wise for me.
Yeah, and I'm assuming, knowing you're a Liverpool fan, playing Liverpool in the cup final was probably something you never in 1 year thought you'd ever do, I suppose. But just again, it just shows you. And how was that experience?
It's probably the best experience my whole career, that one game. Like you say, Liverpool fan at Wembley, your family's there, 90,000 people. You're playing against Steven Gerrard, who, someone that I just idolised as a footballer, and the team that I've always supported. So it couldn't have been a better final for me in terms of who it was against. Obviously, I would have liked to have won the game, but to take them to penalties, I was fortunate enough to take a penalty and score one. Again, a memory that I'll always remember. It helps that it's on Sky probably once a week, once a month. Well, it seems I seem to get a message every month from someone different saying, "Oh, that cup final's on." So it's not something I'm going to forget. That's for sure.
I remember watching it at the time, and now you say it, I do remember you scored it. How were the nerves?
I was numb. I was numb. I said to myself, I felt I had a good game. Confidence was high. As soon as the final whistle went, I said to myself, I'm taking a penalty and I'm going to put it to my left. That was all that was in my head. And then we went to the group. Malky said, who's taking a penalty? And I instantly put my hand up. I said, I want one. So I was second. Luckily for me, not luckily, but the 3 penalty takers before me all missed. Kenny Miller for us, and Gerrard and Charlie Adam for them. And you're stepping up, and it's just an out of body experience. You're walking to the penalty spot from the halfway line in front of 90,000 people. It's unbelievable feeling. And then when you score, the relief, it's just unbelievable. And you're thinking we can go on and win it at that stage. Fortunately, it wasn't to be, but it was a great memory, for me, that game.
And after you're saying it, I guess playing against Charlie Adam, who you'd have played with, and you think back playing him at Ross County, and then 7 years later, both playing an Arsenal final together. It's funny how the world goes.
Unbelievable.
And what was I going to say? The sort of numbness he felt was, you know, I know from some games I played to a lesser extent. Well, you know, actually, I guess the probably the best experience I can relate to it is when Rangers first got relegated, and we were, again, being a Rangers fan, but lucky enough to get Rangers relegated, so you'd actually have a chance of playing at Ibrox in front of 50,000. But I think Rangers' first home game when they first got demoted was a full house, and they just signed. I think they just signed Templeton, who'd actually scored against Liverpool, I think a few days before for Hearts, and they signed, who else did they sign? I think they tried to sign Ryan McGowan and Templeton, but Templeton came and there was a full house, and I just remember that game. And you know, we played against them after that and that, but the first time we played that game, it was just like running in thin air, and you just never felt tired. Was that a similar experience, or did you have that a lot, or was that a one-off experience? You especially felt like that adrenaline.
I remember. I remember the game. It was honestly that game, especially. It was on a Sunday, with it being the cup final, and we went down on the Friday. And believe it or not, we went down on the Friday, and we managed to be. We were late for the game in terms of arriving. We never got to the game. I think it was a 4 o'clock kickoff. We never got there till 3, which is unheard of. It was probably the worst warm up I've had in my whole career, and it was the biggest game of my life. We had to rush it, and I remember after the game, my brother said it to me. He said it was like you're running on sand for the first 15 minutes, and it was. I just couldn't get going, and it was obviously just because of the preparation wasn't right. But then I remember after that first 15 minutes, just grew into the game, and like you say, just felt like I could run all day. And I remember, I think after the game, you know, when you get to England, a lot of it's down to stats and things like that. And I think I ran just under 19k or something in the whole match, which is, you know, a lot in terms of, you know, I think, you know, 90 minutes, maybe 13k you would do is impressive, but to do just under 19 or whatever it was that I did just proved that, you know, when you want to, you can push your body, you know, to the limit, and you just feel that you can do anything. And that's the way I felt. You know, you spend a lot of the game without the ball because you're playing against such a quality team, and so you're doing a lot of running just naturally. But because it was on recently, I was watching it, I was laughing. Everyone was just pulling up with cramp because you're just putting so much into it. And like I say, so you put so much, you know, the adrenaline and just so much energy into it, and then it gets to penalty, and I think that's why I was numb. You played for 120 minutes, and then it stops, and then you go still, and then you've got this big thing that you've still got to do in terms of taking a penalty. But it's about trying to find that focus. And I think, like I said, the fact as soon as the final whistle went, I decided I was taking one, and I knew where I was going to put it. I just had that clear mind, and I think that was the main thing of, you know, why I was able to do it, you know, and execute what I wanted to do.
And I think from a lot you said in the interview, I think a lot of what you do, you speak with like conviction. I don't think you were ever overconfident with any moves or any parts of your career, but I don't think you lacked a special belief. But I think you always knew what you needed to do. You know what I mean? And I think the penalties are an example of that. But I think, you know, from what you're saying, like even the first training session in Watford, you know, first game at Watford, you know, you can still vividly remember and clearly say you knew that you know what you had to do at every single part of that, and probably looking back now yourself, you can say, you know, I maybe did have more of a stronger mindset maybe than I thought at the time, because you know how you dealt with every situation. There's never like looking at your career from the outside looking in and knowing you, it never looked like you had a huge amount of setbacks. And I think, and you'll probably say different later maybe, but I think a lot of that comes with a lot of conviction and belief, but without being overconfident.
Yeah, no, I think I got there by, like I say, you're apprehensive, and you're a bit wary when you go to these new environments. But like what you said earlier, a lot of it comes down to impression. So your first day, like my first day at Watford, I wanted to make an impression. You do it. think at Cardiff, my first day, you're doing the yo-yo test, things like that. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to make sure that nobody beat me at all costs, because I wanted to put a marker down straight away to show that this is what I can do. So I think it's going in there, making sure that I was the best I could be. Like I say, I didn't want to have any excuses. So then that was me. Everyone knows that's what he does. This is the level that he's at. Yeah, like I say, people might be able to do different things in a better way, but this is me, and I'll be the best of me. That's just what I try to be.
Know your strengths and doubling down on your strengths. I think it's a good thing to do in it. And yeah, then Premier League, like I'm assuming it was as big a season going up again. How was that like? Obviously it must have been a total dream come true, and imagine, like, knowing you probably spent the whole summer, rather than like celebrating it, probably making sure that you were tip top for going into it, because like I'd imagine you probably thought, like, I'm probably not getting a crack at this. I'm going to need to. This is what I've always thought about doing. How was the mindset going into playing Premier League? How much of a step up was that from? I'm assuming it's huge, but what made it so different? During the game and away from the game, and I guess the media side of it, the deal. I remember the guy that signed, was it Medell? I remember. He was playing centre half phase, wasn't he? The Chilean guy.
Yeah, Chilean boy.
Likes of him, Bellamy, Fraser Campbell. I remember. Match. A lot of top players there. Like, how was that? Because I'm sure like, even though you've been in England now for 4 or 5 years, I'm sure there's a different step up in mentality, and almost like, there's a lot more swag in the Premier League and a lot more you got to deal with.
Well, that was, it comes again down to the challenge, because if I'm being honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to, be part of the Premier League squad, because that financially the club goes to a totally different level. You can sign, such a different caliber, of players because of where you are. You're a Premiership team, so then you start to doubt yourself a little bit in that scenario, because you're going up again. And it's funny you mentioned Medell. The 2 seasons previous, I was squad number 8, and then you go into the new season, and I'll never forget it. There was 3 or 4 of us who had been numbers between 1 and 11, and going into that new season, 4 of us got our numbers taken off us. So number 8, Gary Medell, he got my number. You're signing a Chilean international, from Seville for, I think it was 11 million. So you're starting to then maybe think, do I fit into this squad? Where am I? But I did what I always do. Like you said, I made sure I was as fit as I could be. I came in back for pre-season. Again, no one's going to beat me in the yo-yo test, because you do that first day. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to show everyone that I'm here, I'm fit. And then you just do pre-season as good as you can. And even then, I wasn't sure, because, you can only have, I think they have to name 25 players in the squad. If you're not registered in that 25 players, you can't play. And I'll remember, I think we played Parma maybe in a friendly, and I was meant to be sub, and somebody got injured. It was the last game before the season started. Someone got injured in the warm-up, and I had to start. Well, I got taken in because someone got injured. I think it might have been Medell. He got a wee injury. And I played the game, and I played really well. And then from that moment on, I was in the squad. I didn't start the first few, but I was sub. And then you keep at it, and you keep chipping away. And before you know it, I think I started 7 out of 8 games in the Premier League. And that was just pure, sheer perseverance. People getting signed for millions, people on way more money than what I was on, etc. But you just go with it and try and make the most of it, and that's what happened.
And I remember watching the game. Actually, you played against, was it Man City, and you beat them 3-2. And I think you set up a goal.
Yeah, I came on, and that was the second game. It was our first home game. It was live on the Sunday, and I came on. We won 3-2. I set up the third goal, and again, that just gives you a wee right. Okay, I'm part of this squad, because our first game was away to West Ham. I didn't get on that game, but I felt happy that I was in the squad. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're part of it.
Even though I didn't get on, I was disappointed, but I was happy that I was in the 18 because there was real quality players who had helped us win the league the previous year who weren't even in the 18. So, I was happy that, I felt, really lucky to be in that, position. And then I got on in the City game. And then I think we might have played Hull the next game or 2 games after. And I started that game and I set the goal up. And again, it just gives you huge belief when you have an impact in the game. It just makes you think, right, okay, I can play at this level. And that was when I got sort of a good run in the team.
And was there, I know maybe the answer to this because you're not a type of person, but was there a point you ever thought, right, I've done it now, I've completed it, made it, I can't beat this, or were you always thinking about still pushing forward, or was it just not in your, because you're so involved in the day-to-day and the next game, and you just never comprehended that?
I probably didn't realise it. It's probably now that I'm away from it, I think, you're watching it every day, and then or the way football is just now, it's on TV all the time, and you think, I was actually in that league. I didn't realise at the time. I generally didn't. It was just natural just to play football. And it's amazing, all of a sudden you're in the Premier League, and, you joke about it, but I used to wear Nike football boots, but I remember the day Adidas came to the training ground, and they go through and they realise, oh, you're playing every week. And they're like, why are you not wearing Adidas boots? And I'm like, well, because I like wearing Nike. Well, do you want to start wearing Adidas? So they had every Adidas boots that you could think of with them. And they were just like, take whatever you want, just try them out. And if you want them, we'll just start sending, them to. So you get to this level, and it's just like you're just handed everything because you're playing in the best league in the world. They want every player wearing their boots because they want kids seeing them, seeing you wearing their boots, because then that can, in return, get them to buy them. So just things like that, you just think, I've never experienced that. You just sort of getting all up, but I didn't think anything of it. I didn't get caught up in it. I just carried on wearing my Nike boots. That's what I was, I knew that was my routine, things like that. And like I say, I probably and now when I look back, I think, it was a special moment to be playing in that league. I feel very privileged and honoured to have done it.
And do you regret not maybe appreciating it at the time a wee bit?
Probably. Maybe because I just love playing football, and I was one of those that, especially when you're in the Premier League, there's so many in my squad at the time. There was a lot of good players around me, so there was times when you weren't playing, and I find that difficult. And you're, like I say, because I trained the best I could every day, it comes down to you're just not getting picked because there's better players than you. The manager, the reason you're not playing is because he sees this player better than you, and that was hard to accept. I felt in that sense, just because I wouldn't want to just stay, because I think, well, it's because I'm not good enough. I just want to play football. So if that means going back to the Championship, then I'll do it. I'd rather just play football, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. What was your how did the rest was any of our particular experiences in Premier League that you recall that are particularly special, and then Solskjaer came in, is that right?
Yeah, so I think it's been well documented that Malky left, and under a cloud in sort of December time, and Gunnar Solskjaer comes in as a manager, and it's, again, for someone who loves football, it was like, wow, you know what I mean? Yeah. Ole Gunnar's coming in, and he's just exactly what you see. Lovely man, great guy, but I think at the time, Cardiff, we were obviously in a relegation battle. He was used to, when he was in England, being at Man United, so it was about almost playing 4-2-4 attacking football. I've joked about it in the past, since then, but it was almost like, right, you're not playing this week, but you play in 2 weeks' time, which is fine when you're at Man United, because you're fighting on maybe 4 or 5 different, league cups, European Cup. So you've got a big squad and you can rotate it like that. Whereas we were just playing Saturday to Saturday, so it wasn't like, it was just one game, recover one game. And there was one game that I wasn't even in the squad. I wasn't stripped, and he said I didn't need to come to the game. It was a home game, but he said, you don't need to come, just stay at home with your family, it's fine. And then the following week we were playing, and it was away, and we'd had no injuries or suspensions in that week, and I started the game. So you go from, he's almost trying to be too nice by saying, look, have a day at home with your family, but you're a footballer, you want to be at the game, you want to be part of it.
Even if you aren't playing, you want to be involved. Yeah.
But you play the next week. But we had drawn the game previously, so it wasn't like we'd had a terrible result and he was just ripping up the team. And that was, he was just a bit too nice. You know what I mean? He was too nice to me by saying, you don't have to come. But then the following week I'm playing. So I found that quite difficult. We had a big squad, so I don't think that worked, and that's why, it probably didn't work for him. I think a couple of weeks into the next season, he left.
And were you shocked that he got the Man United job?
A wee bit, just because, he's a bit too nice. But then, on that other argument, like I say, he's used to challenging on different fronts. So at Man United, you've got multiple options, so you can rotate it now and again, and change things. And that probably suits him.
And I guess speaking of managers, who would you say you liked? Do you have a favourite manager when you look back and think he was the best manager I played under, especially?
No, I could. I'm very fortunate the people that I've worked under. I've talked about Brendan. Give me real belief. I spent 4.5 seasons with Malky as my manager. Probably had my most, successful time working under him. Sean Dyche was the assistant manager, working under him. Then Ollie. You're trying to learn things off all of them. Good or bad, just things that you can. For when you're, hopefully become a coach or a manager, that you can try and implement it. And even working under, the people that I have at Ross County, in Stephen Ferguson and Stuart Kettlewell, you learn things off them. And now John Hughes, an experienced person. Robbie Nielsen at Hearts, it's endless. Craig Levine, I feel very lucky, the names that I've worked under. And I like to think that I can buy into the stuff that I've learned from them. And
I guess you do that when you're a player, don't you?
Man.
Yeah, and you I think you do that when you're a player. You sort of look at managers and think, I'd do that. I can see ways doing that. And sometimes some things you just don't get. And I think it's like that. It's like you can never, I guess, I've had mentors in the fitness industry and that, and you can never sort of characterize yourself in one person, be that person. But what you can do, if you're learning for 4 or 5 people, is just pick off bits and bobs that you do like, and then mold it all together and be your own person. I think that's the most important thing. So I'm sure the boys are sort of reaping the rewards off now. Like so, and then I guess came relegation. I know it wasn't your first relegation because you were at County when we went down. When I was there, but rather than the positive side of things, which I think the most important thing with career, and it's not something that I particularly maybe know about yourself, which should be good to hear more about. But I think you learn the most when you have setbacks and lessons. I think it's always like if you take a lesson from it, it's very important. So what were the stages in career where you had maybe the biggest setbacks, or you learned the biggest lessons? Because I don't think you learn a lot when you're doing well. I know that from anything in life. I think it's a case of not getting too high when you win and not too low when you lose. But what were the biggest setbacks in your career, and how did you sort of learn from that and take that on to the next stage?
The biggest setback for me was probably my time at Wigan. Just because, so I'd been offered we'd obviously at Cardiff, we'd been relegated, but I'd been offered a new contract to stay at Cardiff. Been there 3 years. We were all settled. The family loved it. But like I said, I was working under Ollie, and it was nothing against him, but obviously when you get relegated, like I've said before, in England, you get the parachute payment. So you're almost the richest club in the Championship because you've been relegated. So you almost had a checkbook to go and sign whoever he wanted. And there was a huge squad, huge, 30-odd players. And I'd been offered a contract to stay, and I would have been 31 at the time. And I just sort of felt, I'm not going to play as much football as I want to play here. There's just too many options. So I rejected the contract, went to Wigan. And the reason I went to Wigan was because I thought it was the right move. There's a lot of Scottish players that I knew there, James MacArthur, Sean Maloney, Gary Caldwell. They'd been beat in the playoffs the season before. I looked at their squad. I thought it was a great squad. Uwe Rosler was the manager. And I signed for them, really thinking that I could get back to the Premier League again. That's what I thought. I thought it was such a strong squad. But what happened was, in between me leaving Cardiff and signing for Wigan, being me, I was out doing my running on the roads as I do, trying to keep fit. And I got a wee calf strain. And it was probably the start of a really difficult sort of two and a half years for me. I got a calf strain. And then I went to Wigan, and luckily for me, the physio at Cardiff had actually gone to Wigan as well, just by pure chance. And I was signing for Wigan, and I said, look, I've got a wee tweak in my calf. So he looked at it and he said, oh, it's just a little thing, nothing major, don't worry. He told the manager. He knew my body anyway from working with him for 3 years, so he was fine with that. And I signed for Wigan thinking, brilliant. And it was a real challenge, because I just couldn't get back from this sort of calf problem. And for that whole season, it was just on and off. The manager got sacked. Malky came in, which was, again, pure coincidence. So he's now my manager for the third time. And we get relegated at Wigan. And I didn't play well. One, due to fitness, really. It just kept getting to that stage. I felt fit, and then it would, something would happen. So then we get relegated at Wigan, which, I would never have foreseen. And it was probably the hardest season of my life, or my career, sorry. And then that pre-season, decided Gary Caldwell had taken over. I was going to be staying. Still had a year of my contract. He was a friend. He was a teammate. Someone I knew really well. He wanted me part of his team still, even though there was a big transition going on. And I came back after doing what I'd been told to do over the sort of close season. I came back for pre-season, and my calf went again. Felt it. So, and then in the meantime, me getting the calf, I got appendicitis, so I had to get emergency surgery and get my appendix out. And then I had to then go and get surgery on my calves. So it was something I'd never experienced in my whole career. I was very fortunate, from 16 to 31, maybe a wee spell here and there, but nothing major. And then all of a sudden you're having to deal with this. Maybe it might have been because, like I say, I give 100% every day in training, and it was maybe taking its toll on me. I'm getting to 31. It's 15 years of just, intense pounding on your body. So you really start to doubt yourself. You think, is this my career coming to an end? Can I sort of come back from this? So anyway, I had the two surgeries on my appendix and my calves, and got to January, and I left Wigan and went to Hearts. And again, had a difficult 6 months there when I first went, because I just couldn't get fit. It wasn't through the want of trying. It wasn't through living my life wrong. I was seeing the best specialists, etc., to try and help me, and we just couldn't get to the bottom of it. It's really challenging 18 months to 2 years that I'm going through now. And not only that, you've now moved from Cardiff to Wigan and then Wigan back to Scotland, so you've got the transition of moving your family, your kids again. It was tough, it was really challenging for me. But luckily for me, the family, got around me and helped me through that period. And then I went to Hearts, and Robbie Nielsen was first class for me, and he made sure that I had his full support and the club would look after me. And that's what they did. And, I managed to play for another 4 seasons after that, which probably at the time I didn't think was going to be possible. And, I put a lot of that down to him.
It's just taking that away that element of like control, I guess, because like that's probably like you keep reiterating to in the interview is like going back to like the one fundamental is the fitness. One thing can control, and that's been taken away. It's just I can't, there is nothing more frustrating as a football player and being injured and watching games when you can't be involved in it. Even if the team's winning, you put on a brave face, but even worse if they're getting beat. And I'm sure that no matter what level you're at, and I think people can sort of think, he's all right, he's had a good career, he's played Premiership, he's played Championship, he's done very well for himself, he's probably achieved like more than ever thought he achieved. But I don't think it ever leaves you that, no matter what level you're at. At the end of the day, you're a professional, and your habits and your professionalism got you to that level, so that's never just going to leave you. It's not as if you're just like thinking, 2-year contract up the road, get a feet up. Yeah. It's just not in your nature, is it?
I think the real challenge is, because you're renowned for being such a fit player, and then you get to 31, and everyone jokes, you'll play to your 40, blah blah blah, and you're sort of thinking, well, hopefully I'm a fit player. That's what I keep playing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it just changes. You just go, like you say, the one thing that you can control, all of a sudden you can't. And the frustrating part is that you're speaking to people and who, have got specialist knowledge in it, and you still can't get to the bottom of it. That was the real difficult part to process. You're doing everything you can to try and get back, and you are getting older, and that you're starting to slow down a little bit. It's only natural, but you still think you can impact football at a level, and that's what I thought. But that 2 years were probably the hardest of my whole career. I don't have any regrets or anything for moving to the club or anything like that, but just the whole part of it was really difficult.
And how did Hearts? I'm sure massive club, but do you enjoy it there?
Honestly, I absolutely loved it. It was a difficult time in terms of the results, etc. Robbie left. He left us in a great position, and we beat Rangers on a Tuesday or Wednesday night to put us second in the table, and then he left the next day to go to MK Dons. And after that, it was difficult. The manager changed, and it was well documented when Ian Cathro came in and stuff. But in terms of a club, honestly, I couldn't speak highly enough of it. And it was one that I just loved playing for them. After I got through that first sort of 6 months, which was difficult, when I got fit, playing for them, playing in that stadium, I don't think there's a better arena or venue to play your football when that fans are behind you. When you're playing Celtic and you're playing Rangers and you're playing Hibs, it's unbelievable. Pitch, isn't it? Aye, and I was fortunate to be captain a number of times, and it really did made me feel really empowered being captain, because I think they're a team or supporters who just want to see players who do everything for their badge and for their strip. And again, it comes back to me. Like I say, I'm not someone who's, we've talked about go past two people and put it in the top corner, but they've seen someone that knew when they came off the pitch he had nothing left to give, and I think they appreciated that.
I think you find that a lot of Scottish supporters. I think Central Belt as well. I know Old Firm, because Hearts Hibs the same. I think they've not to say other sporters don't, but I think they've got a really good understanding of football, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've got, they've got a football brain in them, which a lot, maybe a lot of other sporters don't. It's not been disrespectful to them, but I think that sort of area they do know the football, and they probably do appreciate the small things like.
I didn't realise how big the club was either. Being at Ross County and Cali in Scotland, and then going to Hearts, they're like just a huge club. The fan base, how much it means to the fans, it was just incredible. It really was. It sort of took my breath away how passionate they were and how much it meant to them. And they're a sleeping giant, really. Just in terms of what they've done in the last few years. I know it's difficult what happened, to them last season, getting relegated. But I think now, if they get back up, then they'll be there to stay, and they'll be back up in that top 4 area.
Aye,
definitely.
Yeah, it'll be strong. You saw that in the cup final, didn't you? They weren't out of place. And back up to Ross County. Did you always envisage finishing your career at County?
No, I didn't. I generally, I can say that wholeheartedly. I didn't. I was, like I say, I loved Hearts. I was sick of moving my family about. I'm sure they were as well. I was really lucky the way that my 2 daughters responded to all the moves, and my wife. And I didn't see myself going back. I was happy at Hearts. I still had a year's contract at Hearts, and it was more just an opportunity to go back. The club had been relegated into the Championship. I knew I wasn't going to play every week for Hearts. I was 35, but I was starting to do my coaching badges, so I was starting to look at that sort of transition. But coming back, and I thought, a chance to help the club get back to the Premier League, help me sort of that transition to the coaching as well, which I was in. It just sort of made sense. It was a great opportunity, I thought, to come back. It wasn't like I was going to somewhere I didn't know. It was like you say, I'm going back home. I know the way of life is. It was good for the kids. Try and settle. Now we've been here back into my 3rd year, so it was great. We obviously won the league. We won the Iron Brew Cup the first season. Played in the Premier League for Ross County, which I never ever thought I would do, because I'd left when they were Championship, going into League One. So that was a proud moment to eventually play for the club in the Premier League. And now then the transition of going into the coaching, it's gone full circle.
It's funny how it turns out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, which one we've not even touched on through that whole career, another proud moment was playing for Scotland. Talk us through, I guess, debut, how you find out. Did you always hear these ones that people always think it's a wind up when they get the first call, but how did it come about, the first call, debut, next few games? How was that whole experience?
Well, it's quite funny. I'm sure if you've not heard or you're not aware of it, for some reason they were playing Japan in a friendly in Japan, and it was as a normal week, you play on a Saturday. The following Saturday was a Japan game. Now, I know people wouldn't like to hear this, but I don't think many people wanted to go to Japan to play a friendly, even though it's for their country. And I think, I don't know if you remember at the time, I think 13 or 14 players pulled out. And I was called up as the 13th or 14th player. That's how far down the line it had gone, because, like I say, people would rather rest on that Saturday and then get themselves ready for their club game, at the following weekend. So I got the phone call to say from Malky, because we had the weekend off, it being an international break, and he phoned me and said, what are you doing with your weekend off? And I was like, well, I'm not sure, we're just chilling. I had Ava, my oldest daughter at the time, who was young, so we weren't going too far. And he said, well, you better get your bag packed because you're going to Japan. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you've been called in to Scotland squad. And what had happened was, I think Craig Burley or Scotland had phoned up Watford trying to get Scott Severin in the squad because he was at Watford at the time. But he was struggling with a groin injury. When he came to Watford, he struggled with his sort of groin area. And I think Malky said, look, he's not fit, but I've got Don Cowie. You know, I was playing every week for Watford, and they went, okay, we'll take him. So I went out, didn't expect too much, you know, when you're sort of called up so late. And get to Japan, and you know, the time difference, I think it was 11-hour plane journey, etc., for a friendly. And like I've said throughout the whole sort of talk, we trained, and I just made sure I was as good as I could be in training. You know, even though taking all that into consideration, I wanted to make an impact. Am I ever going to get this opportunity again? Maybe not. So I'm going to take it with both hands. And again, like I've said to you before, I came off the training pitch thinking I've trained well today, and then came to the game the following night, and I was on the bench, which was fine. I totally expected that. And then at half time, I got the call, you're going on. So I went on at half time. Did quite well. We got beat, but I did quite well. I remember him phoning Malky after the game, because Malky had told me that, he said, look, he knows how to play that position. I came on right midfield, and he was like, he knows that inside out. And then the following month, we were playing Wales in a friendly again in Wales. And then the squad got named, and I was in the full squad. So I went from sort of 13th, 14th call-up to being in the full 25 sort of man squad. So it's just one of those, if you get an opportunity, you've got to take it. And that's what I did. And then I started the next game against Wales as well. So that was how quickly it turned around for me.
Aye, it's a funny twist of fate.
Aye.
But again, it just goes to show you how far it can take you. If your attitude's right, and that reputation you built up again, you're, I guess, first in the manager's sort of name and lips when the Severin wasn't getting picked.
Yeah.
So it's great how it's turned out for you. I'm conscious of your time, Chipper, so I don't run too far overboard. So,
No problem.
Anything else that you maybe in the career that I maybe didn't ask that was worthwhile mentioning, or any advice, especially for a young football player? I'm sure we've probably covered it already, but sure there's a lot of young players or parents of young players that are listening to this, and what sort of what would the one thing you'd say to younger self?
I would just say, just make sure you enjoy it. I wouldn't get too caught up in, like you say, in terms of being a footballer, just going, what'll be will be. If you apply yourself and, be the best of what you can be, then you'll find your level. It doesn't mean it means you're going to be a Premiership footballer in England or Scotland. You'll find your level. It might be the Highland League in Scotland, it might be First Division. There's a place for everyone. And the one thing that is, football is all about opinions. It is, so just because some person might not rate you, it doesn't mean the next one thinks the exact same. So you might get setbacks along the way. I remember when I was 14, I used to train with Aberdeen, and I got told I was too small, and you start thinking, your world's ended, because you go from thinking you're training with Aberdeen, and then about 10 years later, Aberdeen wanted to sign me for their first team. So it just shows you it can change very quickly. Don't get too caught up in it in terms of what people think. Just maximise what you've got and enjoy it. I think you've got to enjoy it. If there's no enjoyment, I don't think you'll apply yourself. And I enjoy training. I would still love to, join in now, because I just love football. That's my love. It always has been since a little boy. But I had parents that made sure that you love football, but you still apply yourself to your schoolwork. You still respect everyone and do things properly. And that's what they made sure I did. Yeah, they knew I wanted to be a footballer, but it didn't mean that I took the eye off the ball. I still had to do my education, and then I managed to reap the rewards. I know I was fortunate. I was lucky at times, but they say you make your own luck as well.
100%, and yeah, like I said, what might appear hard work or sort of grueling day to day, if you enjoy the process and you love what you do, it's not work, is it? And it's
No.
I guess when you know it is becoming a bit of a chore. Like I sort of got to that's not what football's all about, and that's why I stopped playing so early, because I didn't want to impact the positive memories, but like just try to see out this last few remaining years just for the sake of it, just because I should just play because I've got the opportunity. I think it's very important you do maximise that part of your life, because you always look back, and no matter how good it was, you always want to go back there to when you're a young boy playing, coming through. I don't think you can ever beat that. And
you just got to apply yourself. Yeah, I think you'll know, even boys that that we played with, they had more ability than me. Plenty of players, whether it was in the youth team and then into first team, but they maybe just didn't quite have the same focus and the same mindset to dedicate, to the football, and then it impacts in a negative manner to them. Whereas if you just, all I always say is, if you can just stay on that straight line, don't have it going up and down all the time, and the performances will, day to day will stay high.
Yeah. And I definitely look back at my career personally, and do look back and think I never was one to be out of line, or was never one to not work hard, but where it was lack of belief at that age, and not really believing in myself, or a bit of maybe just not apply myself maybe as much as I should do. I sort of when I remember back when you were there, I always sort of wanted to go out and do an extra bit in the afternoon, but you're always conscious of what other people think or what other people say. I think it's very important from my personal point of view that you don't care about that, because those people in 10 years' time aren't going to pay your bills, aren't going to feed your family, and like nobody's going to care about it the next day or the week after, or 2 weeks after. Like I think, especially with social media now, it's probably worse than when I was young 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's even worse now because you've got so many distractions. Where it's so hard to focus now. I think
you're spot on with that. I think that's something that I've also been fortunate just with my age, that social media wasn't big when I was coming through, and even when I got to the sort of mid to latter stages, and when social media became a big thing, I didn't have it. So I wasn't affected by it, and I've seen it at close hand how it can affect players, real quality players, because it can have a real negative effect on people, because they're just so caught up in what people think of them, and that's why I'm saying, don't think it's people's opinion. Just take it with a pinch of salt, because it's so easy for someone to type something in and negatively about you, and it could be anyone, and that can have an impact on you. So I definitely think it's a huge part of society and life now for a young footballer, coming through. I still think there's a part for it to play, to be on it, but I think you've definitely got to be cautious with it.
Yeah, and it's all about managing it and being emotionally able to withstand.
Yeah.
Like I said, I couldn't be in the Premier League now, posting after a game. I couldn't handle it, and I think actually it was you who told me back when I was in the team with you. I can't remember what we're talking about, but I always remember you saying, if you get 99 people saying you played well and one person saying you had a shit game, you always remember the person that said you had a shit game. You don't think about the 99. And I think that's the biggest issue with Twitter. If a player puts a tweet up, no matter what level you're at, you're going to get someone that just doesn't like you, or jealous of you, and they just get to say something bad out of pure spite because they'll never see you again. And you're going to take it, that it lingers. You know what I mean? I definitely do think it lingers. Where it affects your football, your personal life, or your sleep or whatever. It's going to have an impact no matter how strong you are mentally.
I think what I've said previously there is that, a couple of times when my first day at Watford, blah blah blah, I knew I trained well. I think you're the best guide.
Yeah.
You know if you've played well and you know if you've not. It's just simple as that. You don't need to read what other people think of it, because you know yourself. If you're honest with yourself, I think that's important as well. You know, if you're honest, right, I've done well. You don't have to go about bragging or telling anyone, but just within yourself, I'm content. I know what I've done today. That was adequate. I'm satisfied with that. Or if you've
100%.
not, at the same time, you admit and you realise, right, I need to do better. I think you're the best judge of yourself. You don't have to listen. You know, yeah, you have your family, which obviously helps. You take their opinion. You know, they know you as well. But after that, I don't think you get caught up in the hype of everyone else.
No, 100%, 100%. And it's owning, taking ownership. I think when you don't play well, like you said, is the most important thing. A lot of, I know it because I've seen it in like mini buses and buses after away trips. You know, hammering it away game, and you could think you try to look for ways to think you did play well, and it's important you are honest with
Blame
yourself.
other people.
Yeah, and or you have your little clique of friends, and you all say to each other, "Oh, you were good, you were good, you were good," and there's our clique saying that, you know, or your mum and dad telling you played well when, you know, the best people in the world, your mum and dad will protect your feelings as well. So I think it's very important that you have that self-awareness, like you do with your off-the-field activities, that you do have it when you review and sort of analyse your own game. Probably without overall analysing it as well, because I'm sure with technology now and like you're saying, game analysis and that, it can get a bit, maybe if you're a more off the cuff a wide player like maybe I played, or a striker, it's quite difficult to analyse sometimes because the game comes to you, you know. Whereas maybe analysing, I guess, is very case by case. But yeah, I think it's a good point. And best you played with and best you played against?
The best I played against, directly against, was probably Ashley Cole. Just unbelievable athlete, you know, very slight body, physique, but just up and down. I thought I was fit, but he was fit, but he was quick as well. You know, it was relentless. But in terms of on the actual pitch, who I've came off the pitch and thought, wow, was when I was played against Southampton. It was when Adam Lallana sort of came on big in the Premier League. I didn't know what foot he was. I couldn't tell if he was right or left foot, just the way he received the ball. It was him and Aaron Ramsey. He was at Arsenal, and it was when he was absolutely flying. They were the two that, in the game, I thought, wow, but actually against, it would be Ashley Cole.
I suppose you got a fair pick. You probably played against everyone you think of. What, two
like, you know,
you've played against all the big names, but players you've come.
You know, I've been fortunate. You know, I've been on the pitch against Spain when Iniesta and Xavi and people like that there. But just in terms of people who I thought after the game that was special, was them two players. Like I say, playing against Ashley Cole directly was challenging. That's for sure.
He's the best. He's the best there's ever been in that position. I think it'll be hard to ever beat. Especially defensively, especially going both ways. And what about playing with? Who's the best player played with?
Probably there's few for different reasons. You know, when I was at Watford, we had a great spell. 2 years I played with Danny Graham, who was up front, who I just had a great understanding with him. He was excellent just in terms of, for my game, you know, we complemented it, you know, each other really well. You know, I was at Cardiff, obviously, some great players. Bellamy came in, you know, just when you talk about professional day-to-day, maximising yourself, looking after yourself, he was at the top. You know, so there's a lot. You know, I played with James MacArthur at Wigan for a short spell, and he was excellent. And that was probably one of the reasons that we had a poor season. We sold him to Crystal Palace, and you know, I think since he's been there, he's played the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 seasons. He's one of the first names on the team sheet. And you talk about a team player who is effective. There's a player right there for you who just goes about his business and just does everything right. You know, so, you know, I can name anyone in the Cardiff team that I played with because we got promoted, but, you know, they're ones that probably helped me, you know, along my career anyway.
It's interesting. It's interesting. That's been great chat, mate, and thanks very much again for your time. I'm just remembering. I actually just realised I'm stopping you from watching Liverpool just now. And so have you got it on pause?
Don't even know the score. That's how much focus I was in.
I hope I get him beat.
What?
United have picked that a wee bit here, but no, it's been superb, Chipper. Thanks so much for your time. I'm sure everyone enjoyed listening to that. It's a good story, not only from it. I think even if you don't like football or you're not a football person, I think even listening to that, being a local person, to where you've gone and how the different sort of principles and mindsets and whatnot apply to sort of every day-to-day life, where you're an employee in a business or a business owner or a football player, whatever you're doing, whatever ladder you're trying to climb. I think all those things that you spoke about will always take you very far. So much appreciated.
No problem. Can't wait to get my free gym membership in the post.
Aye, don't worry. I'll fire one over to you when you're allowed in.
Thank you.
Top man. I'm just